Welcome everyone. Thanks for coming. I want to start out by asking a question. If you have a library card, raise your hand. Great. If you don't, can someone raise their hand who can help them? Right over there. If you need a library card, go see them. They will take care of that. So that was a request from our gracious host, the Columbia Pike Library. Thank you. So welcome all, and thank you to all the restaurateurs who have provided the tasting of their menu over there. We have Ruthie's All Day, Greens N Teff, Los Chamacos, and the Cafe by Kitchen of Purpose. Give them a round of applause. So my name is Stephen Gregory Smith. I'm the program director for the Columbia Pike Partnership, and I want to introduce the panelists we have with us tonight. We have Susmitha Mazumdar, artist and author of Recipes for Recovery. We have Daniela Hurtado, the Director of Operations and Programs for Kitchen of Purpose. And lastly, we are joined by Michelle Altman, the Patient Care Director for VHC Health. So, during the pandemic, Columbia Pike Partnership was very determined to support our business community, first responder community, and our community in general. We developed the Buy a Nurse Lunch program, in which we crowdsourced funds from the community and larger amount donors to buy lunches for the nurses at VHC Health, VHC Children's Pediatrics, Mary Marshall Assisted Living, and the Arlington Free Clinic. Daniela, Kitchen of Purpose was one of those restaurants who participated in the program. What kind of effect did this have on your organization?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the invitation. It was very important for us to partner with you guys because we were all struggling. We were all very vulnerable, and having the ability to continue to provide employment to our staff and knowing that there is a greater mission behind the food that is being prepared was very motivational, and it gave us that sense of purpose, that everything was going to be all right. We are doing this as a community. We're doing this together for the greater benefit of others that are risking their lives, that are in the front lines. So it was very significant for us, not only for the morale, but also for the employment opportunities that we kept ongoing because of that partnership.
Oh, awesome. That's great to hear. Michelle, VHC Pediatrics was one of those care facilities, although you work at several facilities, that were recipients of these lunches. This wasn't aimed at the nurses for financial reasons, clearly, but because the nurses often have very little time to stop and either go get lunch or heat up something. What did it mean to have these fresh, warm, and ready meals in your break room for the nurses at VHC?
So the pandemic for healthcare workers was very challenging. It was challenging for all of us, but especially for healthcare workers. Essentially, we were running into the fire every single day. The media was saying, everybody stay home, work from home, kids don't go to school. But we were telling our healthcare workers, you need to come to work every single day. And when I think back, there were days that I would drive to work in the morning and I wouldn't see one single car on the road. And that's what nurses and doctors experienced every day. We would go to work, we would be the only ones going to work when everyone was saying stay home. And you're walking into a hospital with empty hallways, doors closed. We didn't even mingle with each other as we do, and as you know how to do in your common places of work. It was very lonely, it was very stressful. As a manager, as a leader, I'm telling people, we think we're taking care of you, but we need you to take care of this COVID positive patient and really not know what the outcome is going to be for the patient or for yourself. So as a healthcare worker during COVID, it was lonely, it was stressful, a lot of anxiety. We felt very, very alone. And we were the bad guys. Like, I remember my neighbors didn't want to see me. They didn't want to talk to me because I was going to a hospital every day. Very ostracizing, which is something that we don't really experience in a very multicultural, diverse community, but we definitely experienced it as healthcare workers. And that was hard. So what did it mean to have somebody coming to us? So I'm telling you what we felt. Now we were finally having somebody come to us with a warm meal to say, we support you, we see you, we understand, we want to offer whatever help we can. And that was huge. That was life-saving for us, right? We were doing the life-saving. We were running into that fire every single day, but who was looking out for us? I mean, these are people that would go to home and sometimes sleep in different levels of their home than their family because they don't want to bring back anything that they could have potentially brought back. So think of the loneliness at work, but also think of it at home. So now we've got the community partnering and saying, we want to help you, we want to support you, and we're bringing you hot food because we didn't always have time to go to the grocery store. We didn't feel comfortable going, and we didn't know what we would be eating. And it was so inspirational. It was so comforting. We felt a sense of purpose more so than what we were already doing because we felt connected. Somebody had our back. Somebody was cheering for us. Somebody really wanted us to be okay. And a lot of people weren't thinking about us. They were thinking about the patients, rightfully so. So to have that food delivered was just, it was a breath of fresh air, to be honest with you. It was somebody cheering for us, somebody looking out for us, thinking about us. And it really went a long way. It was like a big warm hug, and it was what we needed. We were so grateful. We continue to be grateful. When we talk about what we went through during the pandemic, that's what we talk about, the support, the community really embracing the hospital staff members and saying, we hear you, we see you, we want you guys to be okay because we know you're taking care of patients in a very challenging situation.
Yeah, it's interesting because the restaurateurs felt the same way. They felt like they were caring and loving for you. We felt like we were caring and loving for them. It was just a big hug all the way around. So it definitely was one of the most feel-good kind of projects that I've ever worked on. I loved delivering that food every week. And the restaurant community that we have is so diverse, but yet they're so together in a different way in this community. And there's something about that Susmitha, back in 2016, you captured in your Recipes for You project, which I guess that was right around the time I started working for Columbia Pike. And I loved the idea of it. I came to see you at this farmer's market and had my copy. And as we were talking to all these restaurants with this nurse program, I was like, I feel like we should highlight and tell this story. So you did this once before. Can you tell us how that project originated and how it led to tonight's book launch?
Well, that's a long story,
yes.
but it really started with, to go back to because there's key elements in the story. So I have a studio. I have an artist studio called Studio Pause. It's where I work. I do my art and my writing, and I'm a book artist. But it's also where I invite the community to have their own shows, to share their stories, and I see a lot of pausers here and people who've been at Pause. So it's awesome to have this community that I started building in 2013. And then Jennifer Endo of AHC, if anybody knows her, invited me to bring my studio to the Buckingham community, to their Gates of Ballston community. And so when I moved the studio there, I was introduced to a whole new bunch of people. Because my previous studio was on South 26th Street in South Glebe, off of South Glebe. So I'm in Buckingham and I'm meeting all these new people because I'm seeing new people, there's new nonprofits around. And so I get to meet Arlington Arts curator Cynthia Connolly. And she comes to my studio and she says, how was I going to know about you? And I'm like, I don't know, who are the people you hang out with? So we had a 4-hour talking session. We were just talking about ideas and projects. And then, we're talking about this, and it was a very cold day, and she's bicycled to my studio, because she does that. So there was a lot of talking, a lot of brainstorming, and my work was different, because I'm self-taught writer and artist. I did go to art school. I worked in advertising for 15 years, but then I wanted to write stories for my kids about my childhood, because my kids are American. So I teach myself writing. Nobody's going to publish my book, right, Karen? But here we are. So I started making the books by hand because I'm just making it for 2 kids. And then I started making it for more people as they found my stories interesting. So here we are discussing handmade books and projects with Cynthia. And she says, a dream project of mine is if I could get recipes from Columbia Pike restaurant owners, the ethnic restaurant owners, wouldn't that be such a cool project? But who has the time to do that work? This is 2016. And I said, I can do that work. Except, and she's like, really? You have the time? I said, if you have the budget, I have the time. but I also have a caveat. And she said, what's that? I said, I will get the recipes, but I don't like this idea of going to a restaurant you don't know or you've heard about and then taking a recipe and leaving. What about the person who runs the restaurant? Do you know them? Do you care to know them? Like, how does it work? So she said, okay. And I said, so I would get the stories of the restaurant owners. And why are they there? Why are they running a restaurant? Because I'm not running a restaurant. So she said, okay, sounds good. And I said, and I want to take their pictures. Because, you know, like if I tell somebody, Susmitha Mazumdar, if you see it in a book, you don't know if that's a woman. You don't know if that's who that person is or what they look like. So pictures are very important for me. So she said, okay, write it up. And my idea was to make this display board with all the recipes hanging with flags, so you can see visually that that is my country, or I have never tried that food. And so I designed it like that. We made the display board, and I taught people, pick the ones you like because you haven't tried it or because it's from your country, and I'll show you how it becomes a book. And we bound it with cinnamon sticks, chopsticks, or wooden spoons, little wooden spoons. So you had that option, you made that artful choice, and with a rubber band, we made it into a book. So that is how it started. And so when the pandemic happened, and I was sitting in my studio alone every day, because the community center was closed, I was like, and we're listening to all this on the radio, we're on the TV, we're like, everything is closed, restaurants are closed, what's happening? Restaurants are closed, what's happening, you know? And I'm like, oh, I wonder what happened to all those people whose stories I gathered, whose stories I shared with the community. And then I wrote to Cynthia, and she said, you know, we are busy with a lot of other things. We don't have the time or the budget. But, you know, CPP was part of the project. So did I write to you guys, or you guys wrote to me? Something happened. Yeah, and then I'm like, oh, they want me to make the book. And then it wasn't easy because Omicron happened. I mean, some of the interviews in the book are from August 2021. And then I remember I went to, I wanted to talk to people who I'd spoken with before for my 2016 book. And I went and asked them, Michael, you know, at Celtic House. And I said, how's it going? Hi, Michael. And then I'm like, oh, I can't shake hands. And, you know, in the end, I had the release form for him to sign. And he said, I just gave him my pen. And he said, I'll get my own pen. And he goes back, and I'm like, yeah, this is different, right? And then August 2022, I interview Matt, who's here today, and I shake his hand, and we're now shaking hands, right? So for me, it was very scary in the beginning because I'm driving, I'm like, let's drive past that, and I'm like, oh, Mexicana is gone. You know, like some restaurants are gone. I don't want to find out, it's scary. What happened to them? Was it, oh, I hope they just retired. You know, like we were going through all that. We didn't. So on one hand, I didn't want to find out the stories. On the other hand, I needed to get out. I needed to find the stories. So that's how this book happened.
All right. That is, it's incredible, the journey from, hey, Susmitha, nice to meet you at the farmer's market, to this. Michelle, so as you know, Columbia Pike's nickname is the world in a zip code. The diversity of our restaurant community reflects that and tells that story. Claudia Salazar, owner of Cafe Saison, was the first restaurant to supply lunches with the program. And once she said to me that restaurateurs love with their food. Did that translate to your staff?
So absolutely it did. One of our locations is on Columbia Pike, and as I was sharing with some others prior to this starting, of our population that go to that clinic, 92% of them live in the 22204 zip code. So our patients live in our zip code where the pediatric center is located, and they're very diverse, very multicultural, people from all ethnic backgrounds. And to have foods that were different ethnic backgrounds really resonated with the staff, because maybe we were taking care of a certain type of patient, but we had never tried their ethnic food. And then to have that ethnic food, we could then say to the patient, oh, guess what I tried? And the patients just light up, right? When somebody recognizes a meal from your country. But again, it was also going back to that breath of fresh air. It was something different in the midst of chaos. And you remember back what the supermarkets were like during COVID, you could barely get anything. So the foods that we were taking to work, because remember, we were going to work every day, were not diverse. We probably not even the normal stuff that we usually eat. So to have something come in that's warm and comforting and different, we tried it, we loved it. And we could really tell the amount of love that was put into the meals that were being prepared, because it wasn't just, a piece of bread and a piece of meat thrown on top of it. Like, these were real hot, delicious meals. And we really felt like, wow, these people put a lot of heart into making them, and that love was translated to us as these healthcare workers that were struggling during such a difficult time. So it was a great opportunity, and because our location is right on Columbia Pike, our staff visit these restaurants regularly for meals on their lunch break, and even have come back and taken their families there in the evening. So we're very fortunate to have been the recipients of not just any meal, but these amazing ethnic, diverse, delicious meals.
Yeah, they. I would encourage them to put their menus for their business in with the food, and in the hopes that they would people would find a new favorite or whatever. Daniela, your business recently rebranded as Kitchen of Purpose, formerly La Cocina. With the ongoing development of Columbia Pike, our diversity is at risk. This book is an attempt to hold a spotlight to our diverse community. This topic of business displacement will also be the main topic at our upcoming Pike Progress Luncheon on April 20th at the Sheraton, Pentagon City, just FYI. Can you tell me what being a part of the Columbia Pike restaurant community means to you?
Well, it's a great opportunity for us to connect and have a closer approach, I would think, with the community. We've been around for a while now, since 2014. Back then we didn't have the cafe. The cafe was launched in the middle of the pandemic on September 2020. And it was hard because, all of this is happening around the world. People is not really going out. But we knew that we needed to keep pushing, that there was people out there needing to get the meals. So we were, we wanted to keep an open space for those that wanted to see some people every now and then. We were super careful, but having the support of you guys throughout the process was a great way to, again, stay purposeful. The name change also reflects how diverse we are. Our name was La Cocina, and people immediately connected us with the Latino community. And everybody thought that we would only speak Spanish. And most of us are bilingual, but we wanted for our name to reflect the work that we've been doing, our mission, and to reflect the population that we're working with. Since 2018, we expanded our services, and we help everyone and anyone that needs help with job training, with food assistance, social services. And I think Columbia Pike has helped us to share our mission with the community and to have, as I was saying at the beginning, a closer connection to the people on the Pike. So we really value that, and we're very grateful that we've been, through the pandemic and the rebranding process, holding hands with you guys, and we are very appreciative of the work that you do.
Thank you very much. Susmitha, what do you hope are the main takeaways from your book, Recipe for Recovery?
Sorry, I'm not used to mics. Actually the first thing that, when I made my 2016 book, the way I did it was I asked people I knew what was their favorite restaurant on Columbia Pike, their favorite independently owned ethnic food restaurant. And they said, like Emma Violan Sanchez, she said, Pike Pizza. Go to them and see do they sell pizza? Ask them why their name is Pike Pizza. And I'm like, what? So, doing that project kind of gave me another in to getting to know my community. Who lives around me? Who do I ask? What do we talk about? And because my work is about stories, and because I'm an immigrant, I came here 24 years ago, I didn't know anybody here except my husband. So how do I get to know the city that I live in? Who is here? Are we only listening, knowing stories of famous people or historic figures or celebrities? But to live here, I wanted to know more stories, because that is how I grew up. I grew up in Bombay with my dad telling stories and my mom telling stories, even of relatives who I would never meet. So when I did that for the first one, but the second one, we weren't meeting people for Recipes for Recovery. So we did a community engagement event, because CPP had events they do. So I wanted to be there. Again, should I wear a mask? Are they standing too close to me? I was behind these long tables. So, what I want you to take away from this is there's many ways in which we can connect to each other. There's many ways in which we should make the time to get to know each other. And it's very simple. You can be behind a table, you can be with a mask on, you can, but you have to make that time. You have to, and especially as we are trying to get back, or maybe we're already back, or whatever comes up next, right? There is ways in this book, the stories that I tell in this book, the stories that the restaurant owners told me, the stories that, in the farmer's market, people told me, they wrote on the butcher paper. I have all those pictures in the book. And that is, that's why the Recipes for Recovery, I don't know where I came up with that name, but it is to recover from this whole thing that happened. And as a community, it's funny because I decided at some point that my work was to be about stories. But my studio is about making time, studio pause. So I think when we make the time, we can get to know stories. And when we learn to do that, there's a lot we will get. Just like the ladies have been that we've all been talking about. This is not just telling their story like many people tell stories. But when we sit down and we get the story, then we get a lot from it. And the recovery, I didn't even think of the nurses, right? But the recovery is of all kinds. And I think to know that there's recovery of all kinds, from just eating the food like you're eating today, from me meeting Hannah's daughter. Hannah talked about her daughter in the book. It's in the story. From meeting Jessica's daughter, because she talked about her daughter in the book too. This is the cycle, this is the circle, and we can do it in small ways. We can do it by just reading a book. We can do it next time we go to the restaurant. We can do it with the same food we eat in some other place. We will have a template. It's a template on how we can, so many different people, all connected through stories, through making that time and having that care. So I think that's the takeaway.
I heard somebody, as I was walking through the crowd, saying that, grabbing the book and saying, we should take this around the Pike. There's a map inside the book with all the landmarks and everything on the Pike that you can literally check off where you've been and where you haven't, and make dates with each other as a community, as friends. Take your book to that restaurateur, have them sign your book. You will connect with them through their cuisine and through their story, and that is community building, if nothing else is. I'd like to thank all of our panelists for joining the discussion. A round of applause for them, please. Susmitha will now be signing copies of the book. You can purchase the book over here at this table. So go get a book, go taste some more food, and thank you all for being a part of our Columbia Pike community.
I want to add a big thanks to Columbia Pike Partnership for thinking of the project, for doing the work with the nurse and the lunch, with working with all these restaurants, still through the pandemic and today, and putting up this huge, awesome event. Thank you so much, guys. This brings everything together in a really neat way.